Welcome back to Lessons in Liberty. I'm Chris Shaloski. Before we get into the 28 principles, I wanted to go through some of the important concepts that will help you understand the principles a little better. First of all, the most important concept is that we, the people, are the ones that are in charge. And if we reassert our leadership role, we can really fix a lot of the things that are wrong in this country. Another important concept is the political scale. A lot of you are familiar probably with left versus right. And maybe on the left is communism, on the right is fascism. Well, first of all, that's not really very useful because they're both bad and they both are tyranny no matter how they get to it. What our founders used was a scale of tyranny versus anarchy. And they wanted to get into the balanced center because it's not good to go without any laws, but it's also not good to go with too many laws where you are feeling like you are a subject or you are at the whims of the government. So they wanted to find a balanced center between tyranny and anarchy. Another important concept to understand is ruler's law versus people's law. That's kind of a good breakdown. And some examples of ruler's law are that the law is at the whim of the ruler. If a previous law failed, they don't admit to failure in that regard. They just make other laws or amplify on that law to make it better, when they should really just repeal it and start over. And then the last thing on ruler's law is that we are treated as subjects, and we have to, as the people, we have to ask permission to do things. And that's not what was intended. What was intended was for us to operate under people's law, the people being sovereign. We are the ones that give consent to the government for them to operate. Another part of people's law is that resolve problems at the lowest level. We have several different levels of government, from the federal level all the way down to local level, because all the different local areas are different. And if you don't know what's going on in that particular area, you might make some bad decisions. So it's best to do things at the lowest level possible. Our first Constitution was called the Articles of Confederation. We operated under that through the Revolutionary War and shortly after that. Our founders, they did the best they could, but they were too tainted by the fact that we had lived under tyranny. And so the Articles of Confederation was really too weak at the central government level. And so we ended up way too far on the scale, more towards anarchy than tyranny, and we almost lost the Revolutionary War as a result of that misplacement. The Constitution created in 1787 at the Constitutional Convention. It was led by George Washington. Not everyone thought alike. They all had different beliefs like you and I do, but they deliberated. They spent a lot of time, and they come up with the best solution that they could at the time for us. And it's been a very long-lasting document that has done us well over the years. What they created in there was, one of the great things that they created in there was the separation of powers between three different branches of government. This hadn't been tried before to this extent. And it's very well illustrated by the three-headed eagle, where you have the executive, the judiciary, the middle head is the legislative, and one eye represents the Senate, one eye represents the House of Representatives. But they have one neck, and that means that everything is done in a coordinated fashion, and they all have to work together to actually get things done. So it's an excellent illustration of that. Our government is separated by those three branches. We're also separated by power supposed to be distributed at the national level, state, and local levels. So those were different ways that we had separation of powers. Another great illustration of using an eagle that reflected one of the concepts at the time, the left and right wings of the eagle. And the founders believed that there are two basic thoughts that people had, two basic ways of solving problems. You had a problem-solving wing that people wanted to get things done, and they had ideas generated to do that. And you had the conservancy wing, where people thought about the fiscal realities of that, and could we do it? Should we do it? And the thing about that is that the eagle will not fly unless both wings are active and working together. It'll just go around in a circle, whether we're too much on the problem solving or too much on the conservancy side. So they have to work in conjunction with each other to fly straight and fly long. And finally, I want to talk about the concept of liberty versus freedom. I'll use the terms interchangeably in the lesson here, but really freedom is if I open the door and let my dogs out, they have freedom. And that's not really what we're talking about with the freedom that we have in this country that we acknowledge in our Constitution. It's really more liberty is the better term for that, because liberty is freedom but with responsibility. Concerning being concerned about others and not violating their rights in exercising ours. So I hope I've gotten across a couple of important concepts here that will help you when we study these 28 principles, and I look forward to going through the principles with you. Thank you.